Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So in the previous three videos, I had shown you the functionality of isDisplayed and isEnabled and also isSelected method in Selenium. So before moving further, I am going to show you some of the interview questions that have been asked related to these commands. So in this video, we will be discussing about the interview questions related to isDisplayed and isEnabled. So let's start. So the very first question and the very basic question that have been asked is, what does isDisplayed method in Selenium do? As we know that this method checks whether an element is currently visible on the page or not. It returns Boolean value, means when you call the isDisplayed method, it returns true if the element is visible and it returns false if the element is not visible. Then the same question can be asked in a different way, where the interviewer may ask you when would you use the isDisplayed method. So we say isDisplayed method is used to verify the visibility of elements such as buttons, input fields, links, etc. on the web page. It is commonly used in test automation to ensure the presence of expected elements. Okay. Now the third question is very important question. Every person who is doing automation using Selenium should know this. What happens if you are using isDisplayed on an element which is not present in your DOM? Okay, so in such case you will get an exception which is known as no such element exception, and we have to handle this exception appropriately in our test scripts. Okay, so if the element is not present and you are still using isDisplayed method in your code, you will get no such element exception. Okay. Now the next question is, how do you handle scenarios where an element is present in the HTML but visible on the screen, but not visible on the screen? Okay, so in such scenarios, isDisplayed method will return false even though the element exists in the HTML, because isDisplayed method will be executed only on the currently visible web page. Okay, to handle this, you might need to scroll to the element. The element may present downward on your screen in the web page, or you have to interact with it using JavaScript actions to make it visible before performing actions. So this is a completely different topic where we have to use JavaScript actions to scroll to particular elements, okay, which are not visible on the opened web page on your screen. Okay, so in such cases, what do you have to do? You have to first make your element visible and then you can use isDisplayed method. Okay. Now the next question, what does isEnabled method in Selenium do? So as we know that isEnabled method checks whether an element is currently enabled or not. It also returns a Boolean value. If the element is enabled, it returns true, and if it is not enabled, then it returns false. And as I already told you, what is meant by the element is enabled or not, means it is interactable. If it is a button, it should be clickable. If it is a text field, you should be able to enter some values in it. And it's a radio button, you should be able to select it. Okay, so the element should be interactable. If it is not interactable, it means it is disabled. Now the same question can be asked in a different way, like when is the inenabled method typically used? So we should say that this method is used to verify whether an element such as button or input field is in an enabled state, meaning it can be interacted or not. Okay. Now the next question is, what are some scenarios where an element might be present but not enabled? So there can be scenarios where element is there but it is not enabled. So elements like buttons or input fields may be disabled due to various reasons, such as application logic, user permissions, or certain conditions not being met. For example, a submit button may be disabled until all required fields are filled. Okay, there you may have come across pages on certain website where you have, suppose you want to sign up to a particular website, and according to logic, first you have to give all your details and then only the sign up button can be enabled. So this can be one example. Okay. Now how do we handle scenarios where an element is present but disabled? So in such cases, you may need to wait for the element to become enabled. Okay, or you should simulate those conditions required for it to become enabled, like I have explained in the previous question. Like suppose the conditions are that you have to fill all the text fields first, then only your element or button will be enabled. So you have to simulate those conditions which are required to become to become enabled, or you should verify the disabled state before interacting with the element. Okay. Now the question is, can you use enabled method on any element? So basically enabled method is typically used on interactive elements where the you can perform certain action on that element, means buttons, input fields, check boxes, radio button, etc., which can have an enabled or disabled state. It may not be applicable to non-interactive elements like divs or spans. So there may be div or spans where they are not interactable. So there may be cases where you don't have to use isEnabled on div and spans. Okay. Now the next question is, how do you handle scenarios where an element is present but hidden using CSS? So in such scenarios, if you will use your isDisplayed method, it will return false because the element is not visible on the screen. So you may need to use CSS or JavaScript methods to make the element visible before interacting with it. So this is again comes under a different topic. How do we make the elements visible before interacting using CSS or JavaScript? That will surely be covered in upcoming videos. But to answer this question, you can tell them that we have to make them visible first, then only we can interact with them. Now the next question is, what is the difference between isDisplayed and isEnabled? So we very well know that isDisplayed is used to check the visibility of the elements, while isEnabled is used to check whether the element is interactable or not. Okay. Now the next question is, can isDisplayed method be used to check if an element is present in HTML DOM? No. Basically, isDisplayed method only checks if an element is currently visible on the screen. The page which is currently open on your screen, isDisplayed method check only that area. To check if an element is present in the HTML DOM, you would typically use another method like isElementPresent. So this comes also a different functionality in Selenium, where if you want to verify the entire HTML DOM and you want to verify a particular element, you can simply use isElementPresent and then search your element. Okay. Now the next question is, how do you handle cases where isDisplayed return false even though you expect the element to be visible? So there can be cases where the element is visible but still your isDisplayed is false. So in such cases, we need to find out the problem. So we need to analyze the HTML DOM and see if the CSS properties or the visibility settings or the wait for the dynamic elements to load before isDisplayed. So we need to check all these things. There is a possibility that some of your property is set to false or to a value which makes your element visible, but the isDisplayed is still returning false. Okay, so you can verify the HTML structure and ensure that the element is not overlapped by other elements. So these are some cases where this condition can occur, that your method is returning false but the element is there. So you need to check all these conditions. Okay. Now the next question is, in what scenario would you use isDisplayed and isEnabled all together? So this is very simple question. We might use them together when we have to validate the visibility and state of an element before interacting with it. For example, before clicking on a button, we may want to ensure that the both are visible and enabled. Okay, so we can use them all together to check the enability as well as the visibility of that element. Now the next question is, how do you handle dynamic elements whose visibility or enabled state changes over time? So in Selenium, many a times we have elements which are dynamic in nature, means their DOM keeps changing. Okay, so in such cases, we can use the explicit waits in Selenium. So there are certain types of waits in Selenium, like implicit wait, explicit wait, and there is also fluent wait in Selenium. So whenever we are dealing with dynamic elements, we have to use those waits, and in these waits had certain methods which you can use accordingly. Okay, so you can wait for an element to become visible using this method, expected conditions dot visibility of element located. Okay, so we will cover this as a separate topic for sure in the upcoming videos, but from the point of view of the interview, you should know that we have to use these weights where we are dealing with the dynamic elements whose visibility or the state of them being enabled or disabled changes over time. Okay, now we have a question: can isDisplayed be used to determine if an element is hidden using JavaScript? Yes, it will return false if an element is hidden using JavaScript or CSS. It checks the computed visibility of the element regardless of the method used to hide it. So yes, isDisplayed can be used to determine if an element is hidden using JavaScript or CSS. Okay, it will only checking the visibility, so it doesn't matter what is the reason. Now the next question is, can you use isDisplayed on elements within iframes? Yes, we just have to switch that iframe and then we can use isDisplayed method. Okay, and to switch to the related frames, we have to use switch to dot frame method. Here I missed to put the dot here, but it should be like driver dot switch to dot frame before accessing the elements. Okay, now how do you verify the absence of an element using the isDisplayed method? So we can simply check whether this method returns false if it is not present in the DOM or if it is hidden from the view. So if we expect an element to be absent, we can simply check if this method returns false. Okay, same happens for isEnabled. If you want to check if particular element is disabled, we can simply check in isEnabled method is returning false or not. Now, can isDisplayed be used to verify the visibility of non-interactive elements like div or span? Yes, it can be used to check the visibility of div and span or any other, elements of any tag name or type. Okay, it will check for all the elements. Now we have one more question. How do we handle cases where isEnabled returns false even though you expect the element to be enabled? So in such cases, again, we may need to inspect the HTML attributes, JavaScript event listeners, and any business logic that controls the enabled state of that element and ensure that all the prerequisites for enabling the elements are met. So we have to analyze that all the conditions for enabling should meet. Okay. So these were some very important questions while we were dealing with the isDisplayed and isEnabled method in Selenium, and I will make one more short video where I will discuss the interview questions related to isSelected method. Okay. So if you have any questions, please write down in the comment. Please give me some feedback or tell me if you want me to make videos on any particular topic. And please guys share my videos and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you. Bye bye.